Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was afraid I'd have to call for silence because we've never had a more noisy crowd at a Crannóg launch than tonight, which is great. It's a great buzz about the place. And you're all very welcome indeed. Whether it's your first launch, and I see many new faces, or whether it's your 59th launch, you're all equally welcome. And I hope you enjoy the readings this evening. We have a total of 19 readers, mostly poets, a few of those fiction writers as well. So I hope you enjoy the evening. We're dedicating this issue to the memory of Patricia Burke Brogan, who passed away last year. Patricia, as you know, was a multi-talented woman, and she was a frequent contributor to Crannóg. In fact, she was there at the very first launch down in the Atlanta Hotel back in 2003, 20 years ago now. We're 20 years old next month, actually. So Patricia was there from the start. We're getting a lot of applause tonight. And over the years, she contributed poetry and excerpts from her memoir and cover art, because she was not just a poet, she was a very fine visual artist as well, very talented, very prolific visual artist, and a good musician, I think, as well. And of course, she was a playwright, and she's best known for her play Eclipsed. She was a young nun, or a young trainee nun. I don't think she was ever a nun, but she was a young trainee nun, whatever that was called back then. And she was sent to the Magdalen Laundry here in Galway for a week to fill in for an absence. And what she saw there prompted her to write the play Eclipsed. And it was first produced here in Galway in 1992 by Punchbag Theatre. And since then, it's been translated into several languages. It's been performed all over the world, and still is. We are constantly getting permissions, asking for production rights. Even up to last week, we got one from a theatre group in the UK. It's very popular in American universities, in the drama departments there. So it's amazing that, 30 years later, it's still as popular as ever. And while it does remain popular, I think Patricia's memory will last. So we're glad to be able to dedicate this issue in a small way to her memory. So we will continue with the business of the evening, which is the readings. And our first reader is Paulina Cosgrave, and she's brought along her #1 fan there as well. I'll just tell you a little bit about Paulina. She's a bilingual poet, and her debut collection is called My Name Is, and that was published by Daedalus Press in 2020. And her work features in the Forward Prize Book of Poetry in 2022 and in numerous other journals and anthologies. So would you welcome, please, Paulina.
I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm very grateful to have a poem in this issue. Big thanks to the editor. It means so much to me. It's the same level of belonging as getting Irish citizenship, really. Non-alcoholic. In the evening, I've no other drink than the air between the pines. My routine is that of a stone's mossy side, of algae hugging the pebble. Oh light, let me go. I'm all whispers and no words. Shall we sell this sunset to someone better, more pristine, a diamond-like? In my fishnets, I slide down the waterfalls of rage, across the meadows of disgust, and into a taxi's maw. Drive along the muddy stream with an expression hard as a rock in a throat, but don't be fooled by my awkward step. My knuckles are one solid scream of brass. The rapiers of my heels are what pierced all those holes in your moon. I've only had the air between the pines today. and I seep through the ground because I really want to. O light, follow me, will you? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paulina, for that. And our next reader is Lucy Bleecker. Lucy has a one-act play called The Baggage, and that won the Best Writing Award at the Jerome Hines one-act series in 2023 as part of the University of Galway's Theatre Week. And she was selected as one of the Irish Writing Centre's Young Writer Delegates at Court in 2023 and presented her short play, which was called Bookshop, at the Young Writers Delegates Showcase. She was listed for the Court New Writing Prize 2023 as well, and her poetry has appeared in New World Order. So, welcome Lucy Bleecker.
Thanks to the amazing creatives of Crannóg. I'm really, really grateful to be part of it. And yeah, thank you. It's called At the Aquarium. I am a conger eel. My body 3 meters long snakes around this tank. Tail half eaten by my friends as I have half eaten theirs in our undulation to the surface. I open my jaws to gloved hands throwing sardines and anchovies. I catch my prey at 9, 12, and 3 and ferry the bodies to my hovel in the wall, watched by human eyes beyond the glass. You are a moon jellyfish. Across the floor, Aurelia Orita, floating in the dark water. No heart, no brain, no eyes, no skeleton. I watch you from my waters, push the air from my gills, and covet a taste of your flesh.
Thank you very much, Lucy. We're going to have one of those fiction writers now. He is Mike O'Halloran, and Mike has published fiction in the Sunday Tribune and previously in Crannóg. And he's a member of the Galway Writers' Workshop and is currently working on a novel. And you're going to hear an excerpt from said novel now. So welcome to Mike O'Halloran.
Thanks.
And I'm going to hand Mike a mic.
Thank you. New York City, 1983. On Friday afternoons, the lobby of the Cheshire was busy with the arrival of well-heeled weekenders from upstate and intimidated Midwesterners making their first ever visit east. Fiona liked the banter with the new guests, many of whom had visited or planned to visit Ireland. On that particular Friday, at exactly 2:30, just after she had checked in a couple from Minnesota who were walking towards the lift, pulling a roll-on suitcase each behind them, the burst of sadness which rose within her was so powerful she felt she could wail her head off. And with this came the sensation that her energy was being sucked out of her, down through her feet, and that she was about to fall. 10 minutes later, she was in a taxi. Images of Jimmy succeeded one another in her head, like waves breaking against a rocky seashore in a storm. Back in the apartment, she threw up twice before she finally drifted into sleep. She woke, the bedroom pitch dark. Somewhere in the distance, a siren. A second later, the knowledge burst over her. Stark, true. He had met someone. She turned the alarm around to face her. It glowed a dirty orange. It was 3 on Saturday morning, so she reckoned. It was 9 already back in Dublin. It was 9 in Dublin on Saturday morning, and he'd met someone the previous day, and they both already knew it was serious. She wondered which one of them initiated everything. Probably the woman. From the other side of the ocean, she could feel their attraction for each other. She was certain the woman was dark-haired. She wanted to know her name. It came to her, the collapse of her energy the previous day had occurred when he met her, as if a part of Jimmy that had remained lodged in her own being had retreated, pulled itself out of her so as to gather the energy needed for this new woman, this new love. She placed a hand on her abdomen. It was freezing. The city was still warm in September, but her teeth chattered. She rummaged in the wardrobe for her dressing gown, tiptoed into the kitchenette so as not to wake Samantha, boiled a kettle and lit a cigarette. The tears she barely knew she was crying flowed down her cheeks and onto its filter. She felt a strange mixture of clarity, sadness, and relief. 6 weeks later, at a Thanksgiving party in Jackie's apartment in Brooklyn, she met him. The apartment was cramped with Irish, many of them illegal. She went out on the balcony to get away from the noise, and her instinct was that he had followed her. Shane was from Blackrock in South Dublin. He'd done a BCom at UCD, then trained as an accountant. An uncle who ran a chain of 3 bars in Midtown had sponsored him for a green card. Her first thought about him was he might well have met her brother Patrick on the rugby pitch playing in the school's Leinster Cup. Her second was that he was a nice guy. I wanted to see the States and get some experience before returning. What about you, he said. I'm not sure. She felt sly, being evasive with him. But New York, she had discovered, was that sort of place. Lots of people went there because they wanted to, and lots came to escape something. She told him she worked in the Cheshire. A receptionist. So you've heaps of patience. Yanks are demanding. He was smiling, and she saw in his eyes that he was appraising her. She was doing the same. He's not bad looking, and he's got a good chat-up line. She wondered what it would be like to let her head fall into his chest. How long are you here? She said. I came out in 80. I may go back next year. Things are lousy at home right now, but I don't want to make my life here. Neither do I. The words tumbled out, surprising her. The answer to the question that had bopped along the edge of her consciousness without ever getting worked on had been there all along. She felt playful. Be a gentleman and get a lady a glass of wine. She handed Shane her empty glass. He went inside. Fiona looked out across the balcony towards Manhattan on the other side of the river, adorned by an army of lights sparkling in the night sky like a galaxy. She'd seen the view many times, but now, however, there was something exciting in the view of Manhattan at night that until then she hadn't allowed herself, or perhaps could not allow herself to feel. It was easier to be carried away when she knew she could return home than if she thought New York was a life sentence. Will you miss all this when you're gone back? She said to him when he returned. Yeah, but not that much. He's going to ask me out, and I'll agree, she said to herself. A memory came to her. Adrian, a brainy, lanky boy from Clontarf whose ability to have opinions on everything really impressed her. The first boy she had ever kissed. She was 14 and was at the Irish College in Falcarra with Cara. She and Adrian promised they'd love each other ever after, but when he cycled out to meet her in Hope 3 days after returning home from the college, they struggled to find anything to say to each other. It's getting cold. Do you want to go inside? Shane said. Later, he asked her out, as she knew he would, and towards the end of the night he came downstairs with her and Samantha and saw them into a cab. Since meeting him, she sometimes remembered how she and Jimmy had planned on going abroad. The memories no longer stung. They were pleasant reveries in which she and Jimmy made their plans on long walks across Howth Head or over spaghetti meals in the flat in Clontarf. When she imagined all this, there was none of the fear and worry she had felt back then, and in their place was substituted a feeling of wistfulness at the knowledge she was saying goodbye to a younger part of herself. He'd have got on well with my grandfather, Fiona thought about him. So I think I'll finish there. Thanks, Tony.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much. Thank you.
I had a pair of glasses. Thanks. Thank you.
Right. Okay, thank you, Mike, for that. We look forward to the full novel when it emerges. Our next reader is Louise G. Cole. Louise writes poetry and short fiction and is a 2018 Hennessy Literary Award winner. In 2021, she was awarded a literature bursary by the Arts Council of Ireland. So would you welcome, please, Louise G. Cole.
Thank you. This is Rain Man. He sets out to claim her, tame her, take a hold of Rain, enlist the help of hope, faith, science, to capture the unruly run of her, to do his bidding, earn her keep. Wild, she is a keen, pretty thing at times, and in a certain light, but look here, she should work harder, keep at filling oceans, winter turlocks, rivers, streams. Whatever it takes to hold her, he will harness her power. Calm Rain's savage streak, that puddle splash, rainbows over waterfalls, surging torrents under the city bridge. He'll have Rain wash the world in ways she can only dream of. Every needy bucket, bowl and barrel filled full. She'll think it's what she's born to, what she wants. He plans to send her on exotic errands, beating sand from the mats of desert drought, laying claim to blackened bushfires, slaking the thirst of feckless forest fires. With full control of her, he'll marshal clouds from summer beaches, top up reservoirs, drizzle growing crops with just enough, stop her moving when he's had his fill. But Rain can't be broken like flesh and bone, or bought with empty promises, lip service. She shies away from force, turns her wiles to different guises, hair snowflake braided, slipping on frosted feet. She pours through floodplains, won't relinquish free will, drifts as slabs of Arctic ice, blows steam from geysers, strikes a deal with wind. Rain knows what man wants, but she won't comply. Falls to her knees, open-mouthed with cunning, births another violent storm. It takes man's breath away again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. That was lovely. Our next poet is Jennifer Horgan, and Jennifer's work appears in various journals such as Howl, Washing Windows 3, and The Honest Ulsterman. And her debut collection is due in 2025 from Dira Press. So would you welcome, please, Jennifer Horgan.
Last summer's dresses. My yellow dress turns the water brown. I squeeze the darkness out into the sink's shallow. Hang it, dripping over the bath. Last May, it swept the dry terrain of an Italian villa, covered the veins I hate, ballooning Roman sun. Next, I drain, refill and dunk the black and white one. Bought for the big event, then downgraded, a mistake, I think. In photographs, my breasts in the borrowed blue hang an inch or two too low. Not the greatest show to put on for an ex who almost broke me. Yes, I wore this relegated dress on our trip to Naples. Remember? We ended up running down that platform like fools. I felt my month's blood drip as I tried to keep pace with you. My breath pushed beyond its limits. I croaked for you to stop, to turn round. You didn't. On board, I cleaned the blood off my legs in a filthy toilet. then sat somewhere else. It joins the yellow, both surprisingly unstained, two soldiers, or at least their uniforms, drying out. Joan Didion wrote about two dresses too, didn't she? How they connected JFK's assassination and the murder of that socialite. She said connections by dresses made as much sense as anything. As with most things, Joan Didion was right.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that. And our next poet is Maureen Kern. Maureen has a very short bio. Her collection is called Home, and that was published by Revival Press in 2018. So would you welcome, please, Maureen Kern.
Thank you. Thank you. And just to add to Patricia's bio from earlier on, she's on the Leaving Cert course as well. Eclipsed is on the Leaving Cert course. So I had the pleasure of teaching that. It's a very powerful play. This is a school poem as well. When we ask for understanding. We ask with a bottle lobbed, a snowball pelted with the spin of a hammer throw, and we ask with the chair tilted back, rocking on two legs, tight-roping the gap between wall and desk. We ask with graffiti gouged out and inked in colourful tattoo. We ask in the skipped pages of our notebooks where a poet didn't say anything to us. We ask with the unattempted answers. We ask with the incident notes not signed in the diary. We ask in vape and in cigarette smoke curling question marks above our heads. We ask in the flooded toilets, the pissed into bin. We ask with the last school bags that keep us wandering the halls after class has started. We ask with the entries in the late book. We ask with the video of the fight we post on Snapchat. We ask with the thick hate we lay on the other.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Maureen, for that. And our next reader is Breda Spade, and Breda's a widely published poet. Her debut collection is called Watching for the Hawk, and that's published by Ireland House. So would you welcome Breda Spade?
Thank you. I want to start by thanking the editors of Crannóg for this opportunity. Love you all. The title of the poem is Selfie as Father's Melodeon, and in the first line I make reference to Erebus. And in Greek mythology, Erebus is the personification of darkness. And he was not evil in the same way as Hitler was evil, but he was not good. Selfie as father's melodeon. When asked to play as another one there, Erebus, his right hand fingers flick across his tongue, moistly caress the white buttons on my yellow pleated dress. The Sacred Heart and kitchen chairs eye each other, take to the floor and reel together. He squeezes my body. When the dancers come to a stop, he blots me of his sweat. Melodies crinkle in the bag of sweets. My body is a strapped black box only my father can touch. His arms sprout like pale shoots as he positions me on the uppermost shelf. My filigree face, chinless.
Thank you, Breda. And our next reader is Susan Lindsay. And Susan has published 3 collections of poetry with Dura Press. And her writing has been published in journals and anthologies in Ireland and abroad. So would you welcome, please, Susan Lindsay. Thanks.
So my poem is called Tiger Skin, and it's after the paintings of Pam Fleming, who had an exhibition in Kinvara last year. And two things are helpful to know. There's a kind of certain classic advertisements over the years that we remember, and one of them, if you're anywhere near my generation, is the Esso ad. Most of the petrol stations in the country, half of them were Esso at one stage, and there was a jingle called "Get an Esso, get a tiger in your tank." And the other thing is that a padishah is a dance movement. It's a kind of jump away. So tiger skin, after Pam Fleming. Skin tight is not the same as skint, or the skinful taken before sitting in the sleek car powered by Esso. Feathered damsels stretched on the bonnet lured you to the purchase. The petroleum company only needed to commandeer that cat to say it all. Under real bonnets, the most powerful feline imaginable, languid, poised, watchful, fueled to spring. Snarl away. The tame cat is not the same as the wild, spitting fur, yet may rub itself on human skin. There is little to beat, skin on skin, but faux fur, a faux pas too far. The shooting of tigers for skins, real desecration, unreal. Padishah, padishah, dance away. That tiger burning bright, everything to long for, the fabricated symmetry of its stripes, scrimped style and often skimpy. A skint world, ultimate end for human skin. Slow fashion, redesign.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, I remember that ad for the Esso. Not everybody here would remember it looking around, I'm sure. We're back to fiction now with Hugo Kelly. Hugo has won the Coach New Writing Award and also the Maria Edgeworth Short Story Competition. He has twice been shortlisted for the New Irish Writing Awards for Emerging Fiction and also for the RTE Francis McManus Awards. His short stories have appeared previously in Crannóg and in The Stinging Fly and have been broadcast on BBC Radio 4 and RTE Radio 1. So would you welcome, please, to read his story, Hugo Kelly.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony. My story, it's called Summer 1976, and it's kind of based on the conceit of maybe writing a few stories around these remarkable summers of our kind of youth and the summers that make a big impact in Irish cultural life. So Summer 1976 was a biggie in those kind of terms. For those that remember, it was about 4 weeks of searing heat at the time. So I have very strong memories of it. So I'll read the first 2/3 of this story, and hope you like it. It was the summer to end all summers. The earth dried. The earth dried, and then bloomed as if hidden reservoirs of life had. I'll have to take. Could I take?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find your page now. Have you got it?
Sorry.
No,
Just show
the
what
print is
happened
much
there.
bigger.
Apologies about that. It was a summer to end all summers. The earth dried, hissing bursts, and then bloomed as if some hidden reservoir of life had burst. The briars on the roadside knotted in ferocious green strands, airy flowers blossoming amongst the thorns. Hoverflies and crane flies buzzed the air in chronic movement, and cabbage-white butterflies moved like spinning petals through the warm air. Creamy cow parsley grew tall along the verges, and the cattle lay in the pockmarked fields, tails flicking the air with indifference. On the coast road, car engines growled in the heat, the radios whining through the open windows. We were staying in a cottage rented for the summer 10 miles from our town, and it was a new existence for me. I woke early every morning and felt suffocated by the heat and the silence and the lack of company my own age. There's no shop for 5 miles. We had no television. I could not believe we had to live like this. My parents were different too, it seemed to me. For a while there had been tensions with my brother, who had taken up a job as an electrician in Sligo. Our small family was changing, though at this time I did not understand this. In the country, my mother seemed happy again. She wore bright dresses and an exotic red hairscarf as she hummed her way about the cottage. It was an old place, aged and unkempt. Thick cobwebs hung in corners, and there was the unmistakable rattle of mice. The fridge barely cooled its contents, and milk always seemed about to turn. When I complained, my mother did not seem to care. You won't starve, she said. I hate it here, I said. My mother just smiled. I found her indifference startling. The news on the radio talked about a bomb in Belfast. My mother sighed. She turned off the radio and lifted her book. Your father will be here soon. He'll have some groceries. My father did arrive from work with some eggs and tins and a packet of unexciting digestive biscuits. My mother greeted him with a kiss. Before having our tea, he suggested going for a swim. I thought of the cold, silty water and the greasy seaweed that covered our local swimming spot. I said that I would not swim. But to my surprise, they went anyway, and desperate for diversion, I followed at a distance seemingly forgotten. It was 7 o'clock and the air was still balmy. My father walked with his hand across my mother's shoulder, touching her tanned bare arm. We made our way down the overgrown path, squeezing past the prickly wind bushes to the shoreline. A heron rose from the inky water, and there was a plop of fish jumping before stillness settled again. My parents changed behind a giant boulder and then threaded their way hand in hand across the matted seaweed into the sea. Neither were strong swimmers, but in the water they seemed happy. I played around an old fiberglass boat, disturbing the tiny crabs that scarpered away. I looked back and saw my parents in a tight embrace within the still water. They kissed deeply, and I felt my body burn. It was only then that they seemed to remember my presence. Tom, go home, my father said. And so I left. It's all before you. I walked back along the road towards the house. Stray beetles battled across the road, catching in the warm tarmac. A grey plume of smoke rose like rope in the back hills. I thought of running away, thumbing a lift to town to visit my friends. I imagined the small town park where we shyly played rounders with the girls. I thought of the busy streets and the welcoming chime of shop doors opening and the inviting lines of magazines and comics to scan. There was no respite here, and I felt desperate. My parents were happy and did not care that I was not. How could things get any worse? 3 days later, with the sun still blazing, my brother unexpectedly turned up from Sligo. He calmly announced he had left his job. My parents were horrified. How could he give up a good job? What was he going to do? He did not flinch in the face of their questions. It's better that you don't know, my brother replied. I had never heard him speak with such firmness. He did not care about my father's rage, my mother's tears. He was a new person, so firm and resolute that my parents seemed cowed by him. I was banished from the room and stood outside in the evening light beside the overgrown rose bush with its winding thorns and smudged pink flowers. A bee moved by with a nasal drone. A pair of bullfinches rustled and squawked in the fuchsia. I retreated along the crumbling path where I observed a nest of straw-coloured spiders crawling in all directions. Above me a bat flitted by, and there was a sound of distant voices where far-off neighbours walked the fields. The pulse of nature beat in every blade of grass, I thought. I was frightened of its overpowering intensity and felt exhausted, as if I had experienced so much that day. But when I thought about it, I had done nothing at all. Later, when we went to bed, the house felt so warm that we opened the bedroom windows. My brother stood smoking a cigarette, blowing the smoke outside. The moon was visible through the wispy clouds. The cigarette tip burned as he inhaled, and his outline would appear in the dark and then merge with it again as it dimmed. Why are Mammy and Daddy so mad at you? I asked. I suppose because I want to do my own thing. They don't understand I'm no longer their little boy. That's That's your job now. Are you staying long? No, I said, I have places to be. He seemed about to speak and then stopped himself and instead sighed. This heat, we're just not used to it. In the morning, I walked the short distance to the well to fetch drinking water. The sky was already hard, gleaming blue. I dipped the bucket along the crumbling edges of the well and half filled it as I'd been instructed to. Enjoying the splash of cold water on my hands and sandaled feet, I carefully fished out the trapped midges and tiny clover leaves that floated on the water's surface. Nearby, a donkey brayed and protested nothing. A purple dragonfly basked on the stones. Nothing moved. Already the day seemed stupefied by the heat. Further along the road, the sally trees grew in a profusion of spindly limbs and tongue-shaped leaves. Within this mass of growth, I caught a glimpse of shining glass that blinked at me. I left the bucket where it was and walked along the grass verge, finding a large gap among the sally bushes that led to a gate. But there, half hidden from view, I came upon a car with the doors fully open like a set of wings. In the front seat, a guard sat with a pair of binoculars lightly grasped in his hands. His eyes were shut as he dozed in the heat. I stood unsure of the situation. I felt I had done something wrong by discovering the guard, though I could not quite understand the logic of this feeling either. As I stepped away, I did notice that he had a clear view of our house over the fields. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Hugo, for that. And you have a new number one fan now as well. Thank you for the comic interlude. Our next reader is Alan McMonigal, and Alan has written for radio and has published 2 collections of short stories called Psychotic Episodes and Liar Liar. His first novel, Ithaca, was published by Picador in 2017, and it was longlisted for the Desmond Elliott Award for First Novels, also for the Dublin Literary Award, and it was shortlisted for an Irish Book Award. His second novel is called Laura Cassidy's Walk of Fame, and that appeared in 2020. So would you welcome, please, Alan McMonigal.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Hello. Love this intimate vibe. Tom, go home. I think there's a line in a Paul Durkin poem, I'm going to paraphrase it, get it wrong, but every child has a madman living on a street. So in my case, it was a woman, and she was related to me. There is an old woman, lives by herself at the top of a hill in a house with a yellow door. I'm perished, she says, each time she steps into the world. Draws water from an ancient pump. A backyard boudoir is where she powders her nose. When she looks in her mirror, it upsets her that no one is there. Her neighbour is some crazy man's daughter. The postman is a spy and has a method. Her great ambition is to meet someone better than herself. Have I a nice speaking voice? She asks her sweet Afton. I might join a singing girl band, she tells her idol TV. I get down off your cross and use the wood, she calls out to the man on the Easter soap. At Mass, she sucks Eskimo mints loudly, tells the priest currant buns have souls. At bingo, she sticks pins into a man she used to know. Her summer hobby is taking mushrooms from the judge's field. Along country road, she gurgles Sidona, listens to the yarrow sigh. Her favourite meal is 6 sandwiches with something different in each of them. Owning nothing takes up the rest of her time. By the autumn stream, she devours chocolate emeralds, hides the wrappers inside a hollowed oak, makes promises to visit them one day. At night, in a basin of sudsy water, she washes dishes, cups, her hands and teeth. The dishes are placed on a frowning shelf. The teeth go in a glass jar. In her bedroom, she pees in a pot and speaks with God. I am persecuted, she hisses at the children she never had. Come Christmas Eve, she takes a slow sherry in McMorrow's pub. She waits for someone to think of her. She forgives the mirror.
Very good, Alan. Very enjoyable and very well read. Thank you. Our next reader is Liam Carton. Liam writes fiction, poetry and songs, and his work has been published in All World's Wayfarer and in The Anti-Humanist. So would you welcome to read his fiction, Liam Carton.
How you going? If I can figure out this gizmo, we'll be set. There we go. All right. It's a joy to be here, of course. Huge thank you to the editors for letting me be in Crannóg. This is Hennisweg, and sure, it speaks for itself, I suppose. Hennisweg, says he. This old fella's only one of many in this pub, but the many don't matter all that much to me, when this one's the one who's all close by my side and nearly touching my ear with the stubble on him. When he talks, I feel the breathing of him, wet and warm against my ear, and the smell of fags and stale Guinness washes around my head. Hennisweg and hark, says he, and coughs across his knuckles, like just the saying of it has taken something out of him. There are little splatterings of cream-coloured paint, all across the backs of his hands and underneath his fingernails. Oh yeah? Says I. Oh yeah, he answers, slow and rasping. And in case I don't get it, he repeats himself all deep and pensive-like. Hennisweg and hark. Am I having a stroke? I think that's just how people talk around here. Himself looks like he'll topple if he lets go of the bar, but he keeps upright somehow and just watches me, saying nothing. I'm careful not to look away from his bloodshot eyes. I heard that about drunks, that if you keep looking at them right in the eyes, it suppresses the urge in them to slip behind you and bite out the back of your throat. I think it was drunks they said that about. Maybe it was chimps. Eventually, some sort of decision flashes across his face, and he grins at me with an understanding that panics me. Sly, cunning bastard young fella, says he. And I think he means it as a compliment, and he backs up without even blinking and climbs all spider-like and askance up the wall. He looks away then, finally, fixes his eyes to the balcony above the bar and just hangs there, only moving with the shuddery inhale-exhale of his ribs. His fingers are sunk to the knuckle into the rotten wetness of the wall's plaster. He ignores me then. He keeps his eyes stuck fast to the balcony, and after maybe an hour, I feel safe enough to look away. My pint's gone flat. There's algae grown in clusters where the foam was. Something surfaces, swallows a speck of ash and a quick flash of teeth and scales, then disappears again into the black depths. I look up to order a fresh one, but I've moved from the bar when I wasn't paying attention, and now I'm a 20-minute walk across the room at one of the low tables. I try to catch the eye of the bartender, but there's an old man already where I'm looking, and when my hand moves, it's him that gets beckoned over. He's close now. Skin and bones. Someone opens a window at the other end of the bar, and the touch of night air almost knocks him to the floor. He has a pint already bought for me when he sits, and grins a smile of yellow and plaque when he sets it down. Legs on ya, says he. And before I can breathe an answer, he has his fine leather shoe unlaced and his foot up bare on the stool beside me. Blue veins, brown spots. The grin has stretched past his ears. It's then he shows me, while my hand flounders across the table for my pint, how the width of his foot from sole to ankle is thinner than the length of his finger. It's the walking what did it, said he. Walking the walls till your feet scratch the cobbles flat, and then walking them more till you're home for tomorrow's walk. That's so, says I. I try not to sound it as a question, but I hear the ask in my voice anyways as I say it. That's so. He nods slowly, sharing something like an understanding. I duck my head, sup a mouth of foam, and it barely misses me, hits the wall behind me and writhes. I can sense it reaching for the back of my neck, but if I don't look back, that might just keep me out of reach. There's dirt underneath his fingernails, and a dead sheep out by the far corner of the beach. Probably it fell from the grassy slopes above, but maybe it was pushed. What a stupid thing to think. Sheep fall from cliffs all the time. They chew the grass that holds the sand together, and they step to where the ground flows like water around their hooves, and only when the wind is rushing past them do they realize what falling means. They hit the cliff once, sent spinning by that one bit of limestone sticking right out, and when the beach meets them, they spread into a platter for the seagulls and the rats. Sheep are daft like that. Too old now, the old man breathes, the smell of rot, and the beach slips away from me. Too old to walk the walls, can't keep the bastards back much longer. The bastards. Again, the question slips out of me without thinking. Immigrants, says he. He seems about to spit upon the floor, but I reckon he realizes that if he did, the force of the act might snap his neck. I'm too old now, can't hold them back, but you're young yet. And the legs on you. Years of walking in you yet. I try to sup my pint, but the distance from my fingertips to my tongue is longer than my arm. Oh God, maybe the sheep really was pushed. Nish lads, calls a voice above us. Hup! And an old man hops the balcony and snaps to a stop just above my head. He sways from the rafters by the noose about his neck, and the fellas look up for a second, then go back to drinking. That's just the kind of place this is. Old men kill themselves every day in bars like this. Walls for walking, says the man across from me. He takes another sup, while back home his goods fields fill with rushes and his farm tools rust. There's walls for walking yet. In a place like this, you wouldn't even know you were dead until you toppled from the bar stool. I nod wisely, and I think before I answer. Ha, says I. Henniswag and herk. The old man nods with wisdom in his eyes, and we listen to the creaking of the rope.
Thank you very much, Liam, for that. We're going to take a short break now. Okay, we're going to start the second half. Hopefully the wind doesn't change. Part two coming up. We're going to start with some fiction, a short piece of fiction, a flash fiction, in fact, and it's from Elizabeth Power. And Elizabeth has won or been placed in several international and national competitions, and her fiction has appeared in numerous publications, including The Moth, Crannóg previously, Skylight 47, Trasna, and Force 10. And her poetry is published in the UK, in the US, and in Italy. So would you welcome, please, Elizabeth Power. I'll hand you this. Okay.
Finding True North is the title of this story. I supposed someday, but not when I was 3 weeks shy of 90. Corpse cold and breathless, I lay there stunned. I'm not dead, I shouted to the nurse. It's just, I can't catch my breath. Her reply was to close my eyes and shove a rolled up towel under my chin. Nothing for it, so. The children are taking my demise well. They are gathered on that old garden seat in the sun trap at the back of the house. Daughter one, Fusspot, has selected a photo from the photo album for the funeral director. It is a portrait of me with my blonde hair crimped and those big blue eyes, smiling into a good marriage and a certain future. I could dazzle then. My sisters were nothing in my light. Daughter 2, Loopy Loop, is writing my obituary.
You go, please.
Okay, my obituary. At the end, the man who had a skill, a plumber to keep her warm, the cleaner who bought her 2 tea bags instead of 1, were more urgently courted than any high and mighty doctor. How's that, Loopy Loop? Asked Fusspot. What do you think she'd make of it? Really, I couldn't have put it better myself. And now, there's the sun, the one and only, brandishing my 3-litre bottle of holy water. She'll have left the money to the church, she says. She'll not, Loopy Loo replies. Wanna bet? He waves the bottle again. By gor, I paid enough to get out of jail free. A good few thou to clear the decks. It's not as though I'm a murderer or anything. My sins surely wiped clean with devotion to Our Lady, on my knees in that cold church, every which way and in all weathers. Well, you get what you pay for, don't you? I flip my fly wings and soak up the July heat like I did in the pool in Lanzer. The irony of being a fly. Filthy things. I spend my life after them with that plastic swat thing. They swarm around me now. Fine true north, they buzz into my non-existent ears. Speaking of which, this wait for the pearly gates is a bit of a surprise. I thought I'd be shown the way by now instead of this buzzing around. Where is the great Peter? It's been a few days. There must be some reason. Maybe the lift is full and there's a multitude waiting to get in. I'll bide my time. This heat is nice. Fusspot is leaning into the back of the garden seat and putting her face to the sun. Mother defied cancer. She never acknowledged she had it. She'll defy death too, Loopy Loo replies, putting on sunglasses. She won't be getting into that grave any time soon. I'm distracted by one of the flies beside me. It's carrying a child. I won't be having any truck with that. 9 months was enough to carry any of them. I hated it. Picked at my food to stop the relentless rise of swell. I never wanted children. I told them often enough. Do we mention she had no truck with political correctness? That's what Fusspot is saying now. They're on about my opinions, like those babies buried in the Tomb Cemetery. They took umbrage when I said those babies wouldn't mind where they were buried, and what was the fuss about anyway? When you're a nurse, you've no room for that kind of sentimentality. Her tongue would slice you open, rip into you, wasp tongue wickedness, Loopy Loop says with a smirk. What do you think she'd make of that in her obituary? I reared them too soft. That was wrong. Listen to them there sitting on that garden seat, taking in the sun. You'd think they'd have more to do. Anger wells up inside me. They jump up together at the back of the garden seat as it disintegrates behind their backs. Ancient think, Fusspot says, swatting me out of the way, rotted through.
Thank you very much, Liz. And our next reader is Maureen Donlan. And Maureen has been shortlisted in the Coach New Writing Prize and in the Dura Press chapbook competition. Her poetry has been broadcast on RTE Radio 1, and she was winner of the Francis Ledwidge Poetry Award in 2013. In 2016, she won the Trócaire Poetry Ireland Poetry Competition, and in 2018, she was awarded a Tyrone Guthrie Bursary by Cavan Arts Office. She was selected for Poetry Ireland Introductions in 2019, and in 2021, she was appointed Poet Laureate for Bellaborough as part of the Poetry Ireland Poetry Town initiative. So would you welcome, please, Maureen Donlan. Just hold it.
Just hold it, okay, that's okay. Good evening, everybody, and Tony, it's lovely to be here in Galway again. Thank you very much. Thank you. In Ireland in 1924, the Civil Service Regulation Act stated that female civil servants holding established posts will be required on marriage to resign from the civil service. And that marriage ban was lifted in 1973, which unfortunately was 6 years too late for my mother, whom I dedicate this poem to, Occasional Furniture. Before the wedding, she was gifted a faux rosewood cabinet and a lifetime to fill it with whimsies. At 20, she began her collection with curios brought back by her father from the Bronx, a set of sherry glasses, a green crystal sphere, a commemorative vase from the Eucharistic Congress. Relatives brought carving forks and fish knives, velvet cassettes filled with silver things that served no purpose in our home. No one drank from her mother of pearl coffee cups or the gold-rimmed goblets except ourselves to heal childhood fevers with an elixir of whiskey. Everything stayed as she had arranged. We were content to watch pottery swans going nowhere, her little nests of delf flickering in firelight, until we found the key to umbilical clips, baby wristbands, a bead taken from an infant's ear. We unfolded airmail stationery tucked behind a butter dish, read details of fine weather sent in free-flowing hand from sisters in upstate New York. The white china teapot was wound countless times, so we could hear the bridal chorus, a hollow tune that played as it was lifted and tilted, a sad note left suspended when put back in its place.
Thank you very much, Mairead. I believe you're the first Port Laureate we've had at Crannóg launch. Our next reader is Maggie Doyle, and Maggie is the author of Mountain Notes, a Nature Diary. And she was shortlisted for the Seamus Heaney Award for New Writing in 2023, and has poems published in the Blackbird Anthology and the Poetry in Motion Community Anthology. So would you welcome Maggie Doyle?
Thank you, Tony. I'd just like to say it's a real honour to be here. A lovely journey today from the mountains of Mourne and County Down all the way to Galway Bay, and it's lovely to be included in Crannóg. Thank you. This poem's about a beautiful mountain in County Down that became an unlikely communications hub during difficult times in the north of Ireland. Transmitter Road. They landscaped the mountain to lay the road, poured a concrete path between the moss and heather. The broken stones underneath held on to their secrets, taking the weight of the years, not saying a word about the latticed steel towers growing on the summit. Military hardware, keepers of the war stories, silver candles flashing in the night, sending and receiving, as the low-flying iron birds hovered, chopping the air, squinting through the fog to find the rust-rimmed nest where the devil wind goes screaming through the pylons. The 12 kings beneath the cairnstones look down on the metalled road, where bog cotton still trembles in the solstice dawn. They wait for the light to fill the portal, lifting their ard bryn horns to signal that their war is over and over and over and out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maggie, for that. And our next reader is Eamon Lenski, Eamon is a poet and an essayist. His work has appeared in a variety of journals, including previously in Crannóg, in Poetry Ireland Review, in Southward, Ciphers, and in the Irish Times. His fourth collection is called Material Support, and that was published this year by Salmon Poetry. So would you welcome Eamon Linsky.
It's great to be here in Crannóg again, and thanks to the editors. This is a short poem about a large subject which preoccupies us as we move along. Was only ever meant to last a moment, reckoned against the stars, or stones, trees even. This emergence from a tunnel, speeding towards another, rounding hairpin bends, never seeing what's ahead, careening wildly towards an unknown destination. Well, unknown to you, allowing people on or off, till suddenly it's you off, luggageless, alone, the rear lights fading, maybe music playing, seraphim descending, singing out your name. Maybe, or maybe not.
Okay, thank you, Eamon. Next up is Mary Maxwell. Mary's work features in Washing Windows 3 and Washing Windows 2. Her work is published in the Poetry Jukebox Stars curation that was part of the 2021 Belfast International Arts Festival. She received a Professional Development Award from the Arts Council of Ireland and also from Words Ireland Mayo County Council Mentorship. So would you welcome Mary Maxwell.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Crannóg editors. It's always a delight to be here in Galway. Thank you. This is such an honour. Spellbound. You smoothed the top sheet, patted white cotton flat, hands like an iron slid creases out, intent on your task. And when you opened your eyes, latched your gaze into the night sky, you assured me, no denying it, God's light come to bring you home. We wait all our lives for this, hearts engorged, lunging for a last breath that forever stills our voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Mary. And next up we have Michael Farry. Michael's latest poetry collection is called Troubles, that was published in 2020 by Revival Press. And previous collections are called Asking for Directions, published by Doghouse Books, and The Age of Glass, again published by Revival. And he has also written and published widely on the Sligo experience of the Irish War of Independence and the Civil War. So welcome, please, Michael Farry.
Thanks very much, Tony, and editors, and it's great to be in Galway. Altanelvic Waterfall. How strange that on this winter beach, watching my youngest grandson delight in wet and wind, I remember 70 years ago, being taken by a grandfather who pitied a boy too quiet for advice, to a waterfall in our rough mountains, to see damp cliff and cleft, hear the smack of cold water in front, the Atlantic behind. Something told him, my interest in the quarry's rocky outcrops, the fuchsia and wild orchids perhaps, that despite my bookish ways and sober habits, I'd appreciate a glimpse of a wilder, untamed mountain landscape, recognizing something of himself. I call to mind that uneasy man, who taught me much in his wordless way as I watched his arthritic fingers manipulate willow and wood, stone and straw, sympathetic to his materials and task, appreciated his trust in my young hands, his smiled corrections and gentle example, offer gratitude a lifetime later. I've gone back often, seen the cottage decay, the hill road realigned, his orchard fruitless, admired how their stubborn stone walls, church and holy well survived. But the waterfall was never part of the nostalgia tour, forgotten like a shameful bone break, old itch. He was happiest outside, on his knees, repairing a boundary wall, a sheep gap, rebuilding a faulty entrance, or sitting weaving at the stable door while I stood beside him, handed him his chosen stone, selected rod, in awe of the stability he summoned from dry stone, the solidity he conjured from those pliable willows. Some days he'd let me add a rod, tell me where to start, end, how to conceal a join, the trick of bending without breaking. Long after algebra and Greek were forgotten, I remembered, took time to weave a final monumental creel. If I had the courage, I'd dedicate that spot a haven, build a cabin there against a cliff, to escape a lifetime of providing, sing matins and compline in harmony with the timeless water, live out these last days, happy in the shade, safely obscure, mapping the complex routes by which Highland water travels to the sea in that land where no broad rivers sweep through meadows, no lazy trout hide in wide overhung bends. Just innumerable mountain streams steal furtive passages by crumbling stone walls and neglected willow towards the dark and fierce bulk of the ocean. Thank you.
The next person on my list is Winifred McNulty, but I don't think she is here. So we will go straight on to the next reader then, and that is Annie Depp. And Annie is the author of 3 volumes of poetry, and her most recent one is called Night Collage, published by Ireland House in 2021. So welcome, please, Annie Depp.
Thank you so much. It's fantastic to be here. This poem is set in Lettergesh, a little corner of the world where we live, between the mountains and the sea. It's called Liminality. And when the German doctor told me he would see me again in 2 weeks, I handed things over to him with relief. If I sometimes think of my body as a dear friend in which I navigate the world, I also fear not an inch of it seems quite trustworthy. In the field below our house, a new pony has joined the older pair, flighty, brown youngster. A girl in a red shirt strides across, trying to calm it, help it feel at home. So much green. The rain still approaching over the bay, but not yet arrived. My chance to put down for even a moment this heaviness. So much green. The wind off the water riffling the pony's mane. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annie. That was lovely. So we've come to our last reader of the evening, and he is Theodore Depp. And Theodore is the author of 7 books of poems. The most recent one is called River Light from Ireland House. And his work has appeared in Poetry Ireland Review, The Stinging Fly, Poetry, the Kenyon Review, and the Pushcart Prize Anthology. So welcome, please, Theodore Depp. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you, Tony. It's really wonderful to be back in Crannóg. Thank you. This is a poem called Blackberries. Summer seemed over until the 2 weeks' gloom cleared and glistening blackberries lined the roadside as if celebrating the return of the sun god. A small breeze as I walk back from my swim. And the berries are like those of childhood, sweet bursts with tart sparks. And what to do with all the real sorrows, the honest worries, when the taste of berries at the corners of my mouth starts me talking to myself. But I'm also talking to the world that miraculously includes me. I'm turning a circle in the road to take in seascape, mountains, and wind-blown fields. And suddenly the 21-year-old rookie who ruled the game of the week 5 decades ago comes to mind. Mark the bird Fidrich paced around the mound between pitches, smoothing the dirt with his bare hand, then concentrated by talking to the ball, telling it just what to do. I pick a handful of berries to bring home to my wife, wanting to tell her how 50,000 fans chanted the name of the most unlikely of stars, a kid who'd been held back in first grade, then again in second, and suddenly was grinning from the cover of the Rolling Stone. He partook of the super sublimity of summer. That must be the word for it, if there is one. Super sublimity. He's gone now, but if injuries shortened his career to 1 glorious year, his ebullience brought him to mind half a century later. Joy has its afterlife.
Thank you very much, Theodore, and thank you to all the readers who read this evening, and indeed to all the contributors in the magazine. People are thanking us for publishing them, but really without readers there would be no launch, and without contributors there would be no magazine. So it's thanks to all of you. And indeed thanks to everybody who submits, whether they're successful or not. We can only publish around 5% of the submissions we get. But without that number of submissions, that's what makes the magazine so good, that there's so many submissions to choose from. Thanks to Silent Cinema of Galway, who are filming the proceedings. And later it will be on YouTube, on the Crannóg YouTube channel, next week or the week after maybe, when we get the photos back from the chemist. I remember those days. Thanks to the Crane Bar, who have hosted practically all our launches from day one. Thanks to my editorial colleagues down here, Ger and Jarlath, who have been busily selling Crannóg down there. And our fourth editor is Sandy, who is over in Canada. And Sandy sources all the cover images for all the Crannógs. And she does a great job because they're always beautiful images. So thank you, Sandy, for that. And thanks to all of you. Somebody remarked to me at the break that there was a lovely vibe in the room, and that's all thanks to you and the positive energy that you're emanating. So thank you very much indeed. Submissions for the next issue open on the 1st of November, for the month of November.
Get them in.
Yeah.
No, not us.
No, you can't. No, you have to skip one. Yeah. And that issue will be out next March. So we look forward to that. We're going downstairs for a bit of chat and a bit of crack down there. There's music up here later on if you want to come back up for that. But we might see some of you downstairs anyway. So thank you all very much. It's been a great night, and thank you all.